Holybird Education and Publishing presents Stories of the Boo-Boos, written by Mabel Lucie Attwell, read by Tanya Cunningham. Copyright by Holybird Education and Publishing. Book 5, The Boo-Boos at Honey Sweet Farm. Bunty had not seen her little friends, the Boo-Boos, once all day, and she wondered how they were getting on in their wee house in the garden. She could not go to see, for Bunty's baby brother was not very well. "It's his teeth," said Nurse wisely. Bunty was rather surprised, because Bunty's baby brother hadn't any teeth. But she was a polite little person and would not contradict for the world. But whatever it was, the poor little dear had lost all his smiles. Not even Golly could bring one to his face. "He shall go with Nurse and Bunty to Honey Sweet Farm," said Mother. "The change will do him good." "Are we going too?" asked the king anxiously. "I do hope so. I cannot bear to part with Bunty." "Of course you're not going," replied Mops, who was not in the best of moods. "Do you think they would have a lot of creatures like you at the farm?" "I'm going, but then I'm different." Conceited Mops. The poor little king was so sad. "How can I look after them if I'm not there?" he asked dolefully. "I'm sure they'll get into mischief." "Children are such little sillies," said Mops, shaking himself. "Not at all like dogs. Why, Bunty's baby is bigger than I am, yet he can't walk." The king sighed. "Well," continued Mops, "if you are going to be miserable about it, I should advise you to go to the farm without asking. Bad dog." "How can I?" asked the king. He was too miserable to realize how naughty it was to even think of going without permission. "Easy enough," replied Mops. "Creep into the vegetable basket and let the carrier take you there." What a naughty plan! You see, every morning a basket of fresh fruit and vegetables came over from the farm, and each evening the empty basket was put down by the gate for Dick, the carrier, to pick up on his way home. The king did not stop to think, but in a minute he and Mops were down by the basket. Mops helped the king to clamber in, and he was only just in time, for a minute later up came Dick, and away went the little king on his adventures. The next morning Bunty flew down to the doll's house. "Boo-Boos," she cried, "come along, dears. Mother says you may all come to the farm with us. Won't that be lovely? Why, where is the king?" The Boos shook their heads. "He has not been home all night," they said. "Perhaps he has flown back to Boo-Boo Land." Bunty was heartbroken. He will come back, I know, she said. But they could not stand there talking about it, for nurse was calling, so they all had to go off without him. But they left the doll's house door open, just in case he comes while we are away, said Bunty. Kind girlie. They all arrived safely at the farm, and didn't they have a lovely time? Scrumptious cream and golden butter. The little Boos were nearly popping all their buttons. They were so plump and round. The Boos, of course, could understand what all the animals and birds said, and they loved having pleasant chats with them. That's a fine baby you've got, they said one day to a proud mother sheep. Yes, isn't he? Replied the sheep. He's been picked out to go to market, to be sold, she continued proudly. Do they sell babies at market? Asked the Boos. All decent babies, said the sheep. Mine always go. The Boos hurried away, rather alarmed. What if they sell Bunty's baby? They thought. He's a decent baby. One Boo went off to talk it over with Mrs. Scratchit, the hen. Mrs. Scratchit was rather crotchety. Why don't you go and lay your eggs? She cackled crossly, instead of coming gossiping to me. I can't lay eggs, said the Boo humbly. Then what good are you? Snapped the bird. All decent creatures lay eggs. I came to speak about babies, meekly answered the Boo. Babies? Don't talk to me about babies. There was a tear in Mrs. Scratchit's eye. Mine are just gone. Gone? Where? Cried the Boo. To market, of course. Where do you suppose respectable chicks go? All our babies go to market. We miss them, but they must have a good start in life. Molly's went yesterday. She is the Jersey cow. That settled it. The Boos flew off and told Bunty excitedly all they had heard. One thing was certain. All babies were sent to market at Honeysweet Farm. They must rescue Bunty's baby, hide him where none could find. What a to-do! In 2 winks they had that child up from his pram under the apple tree, and were staggering with him over the meadows and far away. Don't drop him, barked Mops. They were all very thankful when they came to a nice hayfield. We can rest here, said Bunty. But the baby, bad lad, did not like being rescued, and besides, it was time for his bottle. He began to cry lustily. Bunty was rather worried. I will go and see if I can get him some nice berries, she said. Take care of him, Boos. After a time, she returned. No berries, she cried rather dolefully. The baby still cried. "That child wants a bone," said Mops. "I could do with one myself." Bunty's little heart went down to her boots. "Oh dear," she cried, "I haven't brought any tea for anybody, or supper, or breakfast, or anything at all. We shall all starve and die." The Boos did not like the idea of starving and dying. Who would? They all cried themselves to sleep on the hay, hungrily sucking their little thumbs. Mops was the first to wake, and it was fast getting dark. Yes, he was hungry. He wasn't going to starve. Oh dear, no. And he wasn't going to let the children starve either. He was going back to the farm for someone to rescue them. Nobody but a foolish boo-boo would ever imagine anybody selling a baby. Stuff! Nonsense! Off he went, and soon met Farmer Bumble, who was anxiously searching for them all. "This way, barked Mops, and before I've the time to tell, Farmer Bumble had Bunty and the baby safely in his arms. And weren't they glad? "How naughty and foolish," said Nursey, as she cuddled and scolded and kissed her small charges. No one would sell a hair of his precious head. Animals go to market. It is their work in life. Little children have other work to do. Good thing I've got some sense, barked Mops. Meanwhile, what was happening to the king? After a long, bumpy journey in the carrier's cart, the basket with the king inside was lifted up and thrown into a barn. "Oh dear," said the king, "what an awful adventure." He crept out. All was dark. He felt his way cautiously round, bumping into all sorts of queer things. By the light of a stray moonbeam, he saw what looked like a strange wee house. Inside the house was, yes, a lovely piece of cheese hanging on a hook. The king was so hungry. So he ventured in when, snap, bang, the door closed fiercely down. The little king was a prisoner in a large mouse trap. How long he was in there, he did not know. But the moonbeam had changed into a sunbeam for a long time, when the shed door burst open and a big white pusscat came in. "Any mice for my breakfast?" mewed Puss, pouncing on the trap. The trap door flew open. "No mice, only me," cried the king, flying right against Pussy's nose in his fright, and right away through the barn door. What a narrow escape! But his adventures were by no means over. No sooner had he stepped into the sunshine Then a big flock of geese came up. "What a lovely, tasty morsel," they hissed. "Let's catch him." The king was really frightened. "It is my own fault," he panted, as he hurriedly climbed a tree nearby. "I am just being punished for being so naughty. I'll never, never go on journeys without permission again." Those greedy geese stayed under that tree for such a long time, and it was not until Nan, the farm maid, came to feed them did they turn their backs on the little king. The little king at once came down from the tree. "Oh, if only I could find Bunty," he said. He wandered on for some time, then sat down to rest. Hardly had he done so than he was espied by the Twinkleton twins, who were out hunting specimens with their nets. "Catch him!" they cried eagerly. Crash, crash! In a minute the poor king was under that net, a prisoner once more. But they were kind-hearted children, fortunately for the king, and when they heard his sad tale, they said they would take him to Honeysweet Farm, to Bunty. "We will see her before she goes to sleep, if we hurry," they said. And so he did, and wasn't Bunty pleased to see him? She forgave him there and then. And everything seemed so happy, especially when Nursey put her head round the door. "Master Baby has 2 teeth through," she said.